Subscribe to our YouTube channel, press the bell icon and stay entertained. Tracking milestones of an incredible journey spanning 30 years. Rahman Music Sheets.
बहुत से रास्ते मेरे पैरों से हट गए, ये कल की बात थी, 10 साल कट गए.
It all seems like a dream. I can't even believe that 10 years have gone by.
हम लोग कहीं जा रहे थे तो गुलजार साहब ने फ़ोन किया और मैंने अनिल जी पेपर पे व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड राइटिंग एक लाइन जब आई, आजा जरी वाले नीले आसमाने के तले. मैंने इसके पहले ये बात कभी सुनी नहीं थी. आसमान को इतना ब्यूटीफाई करना, that was the best line.
आजा आजा जिंदे शामे आने की तले, आजा जरी वाले नीले आसमाने की तले.
Unbelievable music of Rahman Saab and Gulzar Saab and all these things, as they say, it's all collaborative effort.
Look at the place we are. It's one of the most special places in the world, I would say, because there's so much of love, so much of humanity, and so much going on in this place.
Mumbai slums formed the soul of Slumdog Millionaire. The film swept most of the awards that year. To celebrate 10 years of Slumdog Millionaire, Rahman reached out to Mumbai's Dharavi, considered to be one of the largest slums of Asia. The Dharavi Dream Project, a collaboration between AR Rahman and Universal Music Group that holds international music rights of Slumdog Millionaire.
The Dharavi project actually is one of our biggest corporate social responsibility projects that we've ever done.
Devraj Sanyal, an accomplished musician and the powerful vocalist of Brahma, a metal band formed in 1993. Since 2011, Devraj has helmed Universal Music Group, popularly known as UMG, in India and South Asia. It's one of the top 3 record labels in the world that operates in 60 countries. Its India operations were launched in 1999. But UMG's association with Rahman goes back to Bombay, that introduced Rahman to the world.
Okay, let me say this now as Universal's captain. Out of all the local domestic repertoire that I control, and it's a fairly large amount, Bombay would be my #1 personal favorite track of everything that I own. I have a personal connection with Bombay. The first time I heard it, actually the first time I heard Roja and the first time I heard Bombay, both these soundtracks, I was much younger. I wasn't in the music business. I remember they were in cassettes in big white boxes that Magnasound used to create. So my memory goes back then. But then in the last decade or so, when I've heard the track, hundreds and hundreds of times, I think it is one of those tracks that is, I think the only word I can, describe it, it's timeless. That track, that sound, that composition is truly gargantuan and epic in its nature that I don't think any other theme music that has ever come out of our country will ever have. That status. It featured in Deepa Mehta's Fire in the soundtrack. The fact that a theme of a Bollywood film could travel into mainstream Hollywood cinema, mainstream international music itself, I think qualifies what a great piece of art this was. It's huge. I mean, I think, again, one can't underscore what Bombay meant. So if I had to qualify that, sitting with the amount of music that I have access to and the amount of music that I control, that one theme. I mean, I've played that theme to some of the most world famous DJs, saying that, dude, should we do something with it? Because it's so beautiful. And the truth of the matter is we never could, because I could never find something right enough to do with it. Do you understand? It's such a mantle, it's such an epic piece that unless it's perfect and it is as big as the original score, if not bigger, there's nothing you can do with it. So I've actually waited for years and years and years to find that perfect thing that I will do to Bombay, of course, with AR's permission and blessing and love, to take that piece of music to the next level.
You just mentioned about Roja. Its music came like a storm and impacted everyone. As a musician yourself, what was your reaction?
I fell in love. Okay, it was the first regional piece of music I had ever heard. Okay, and not only did I hear the Hindi OST, which was where Arvind was playing when they redubbed it, but I heard the Tamil version as well. And it was the first time I fell in love with music in words that I didn't understand. I didn't understand what the words meant. That music was so ahead of its time. So ahead of its time. And I listen to a lot of, I don't want to say South Indian, but regional music a lot, right? And a big part of it is, I'm very excited about music that comes from the Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam. I'm very excited about these languages. I think that music will still give this music a run for its money. Which is why I think that the word timeless and classic keeps coming back into my brain every time I think Rahman, every time I think AR's brand of music, every time I think, like, what was he thinking when he was making this music? Because in everything that you heard around you, it was the old Bollywood sound, you know, which was very typical. And I know because I own a very large Bollywood library, and there's this distinct, how to say it, a very distinct Bollywood sound which went with that kind of topography of that age, of that generation. And Roja was just something else. I mean, he wasn't some, big fat music director who everyone said, boss, stand up and you stand up. He was a kid, he was a nobody. But what he did with that soundtrack, how he made the people sing, that emotion, that music is not just about the underbelly of the composition. It's also about every layer that comes into it. And everyone adds a layer to it, right? The singers do, the composers do, the writers do. I mean, if it's the greatest composer in the world, the greatest voice in the world, but the lyrics are a little hollow, it's not the greatest song in the world. You need everything to kick in. And I think that's what Roja did. It ticked off every box of quality control. If you took a QC chart with Roja, even now, and you listen to every song, you will see that every lyric, every melody, every composition, every word, every emotion, every pitch, everything that damn album has is beyond A grade. And again, so ahead of its time. But see, that's what AR has been, right? When I say he's ahead of its time, it also means that he set the new benchmark for what was going to follow in the years to come. He raised the goddamn bar so high that he was like, okay, bro, everyone, in the 90s would be like, okay, abhi to thoda, hamara level bhi thoda barana padega, because it's not easy to follow in Rahman's steps. And he's not somebody who's done one great or two great soundtracks. If you look at Rahman's history of music, he's done a ton of insanely good music. So when someone does great music over a decade or two and more, it proves how solid you are as a composer. It proves how solid you are as a musician. And I think Rahman has never ever, there's been no dearth in that department from him at all. He's like a bubble of creativity. Any part of it you touch, you will touch creativity. And I swear to you, I mean, I'm not, blowing smoke at him. It's every time I meet him, when I leave him, in my heart, I'm like, wow. And I meet a lot of important people. I meet a lot of important global, composers and lyricists and melody makers and like really big hit makers. But somehow, the fact that he's AR and he's so humble and he's so cute and he's so sweet, when I leave him, I just feel like I touch greatness for a little while. And that feeling I don't get with everyone. And to me, that's what makes AR Rahman so special. I'll tell you a story. I don't know if AR's ever told you, but because I used to be in a metal band called Brahma for years, my good friend Farhad Wadia told me this story, and everyone who ever played independence rock for a decade or more knows the story. He found this fellow lying down next to a keyboard. He must have thought he's some guy who picks up the keyboard or whatever. He said, "Hey, what are you doing here? Get up!" And a very sheepish guy got up and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir, I'll move." Little did Farhad know that that guy, who was one little nobody who was lying and sleeping next to a keyboard, would end up being the most famous Indian musician, composer, Grammy winner, Oscar winner, Golden Globe winner of all time. So from someone who starts there, and like I'm sure when AR hears this story, he's going to whack me because I'm not so sure he loves this story being told. But it's a real story. It started as an unknown assistant keyboard player for some band to being the most famous musician India has ever had. I mean, how many people do you know who's won 2 Oscars in a year? Been the first guy to win a Golden Globe. He is Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan. You know, I think won 130, 140 awards. Been nominated for probably double of that. First Indian to ever play the UN General Assembly. First guy to ever play for the White House. I mean, his list is so endless and so epic that, you know, I think it's an impossible feat to define AR's journey. And what makes it really fun is that anytime you tell him anything good, or you call him a name, and he's like, "Arey, I don't like that." And the truth of the matter is, he is a bloody legend, whether he likes to be called that or not. So his 30 years have been more magnificent than anyone's 30 years I know. His single contribution to Indian cinema and to Indian music is incomparable with anyone else.
The world grooved to, and artists across the globe recreated the songs of Slumdog Millionaire.
I think Slumdog, with its Oscars, goes to prove that he could take Indian music, our brand of music, and make it important enough for white audiences worldwide and global audiences worldwide to embrace it and say, this is equally important and of that level and of that standard as any other piece of music in the world. I think to me, Rahman is one of India's first mainstream icons who took our music to that part of the world and gave it the mainstream recognition that Indian music hadn't had before.
I see trees burning green lantern in the graveyard. Please tell me why this feeling's a bit hard.
जातियां विलुप्त पर लकीरों पे है ध्यान पेड़ काटना छोड़ घर और जीव का सम्मान.
We still have time, but not forever. Unite the world, cause it's now or never. We still have time, it's not forever. Unite the world, cause
it's now or never.
Some of the stuff that these guys are doing is incredible. So 2015 is when we actually launched the Dharavi project inside a little school inside Dharavi. And AR was very, very kind, and he said, whatever you need of me to do, whatever support, whatever help, anything, all you have to do is call me. So, you know, AR is available for the school at all points of time. The kids, the music, the hip hop, the stories, all the stuff that comes out of this incredible place called Dharavi, AR is very, very close to. He really, really wants to, you know, help them do something with it. It's close enough for AR to celebrate when he needed, not that he needed a reason, but when he wanted to do something for 10 years of Slumdog, he actually did the celebration in the school. That's how important the Dharavi project is.
The children of Dharavi slums now have a platform to learn, polish, and express their creative ideas.
Are you ready?
More than 1,000 kilometers away, this is MGR Corporation School, next to Rahman's house in Chennai. Underserved students from this school are trained for viable career options in music industry. With these children, in 2009, Rahman formed the Sunshine Orchestra that has already performed on many platforms. For more on the Sunshine Orchestra, keep watching Rahman Music Sheets. We now move to Danny Boyle, director of Slumdog Millionaire. He and AR Rahman join us in our next episode to celebrate 14 years of Slumdog Millionaire. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, press the bell icon, and stay entertained.